Welcome, folks, to our Holler Q&A panel. Tim will be joining us momentarily. He's actually finishing up running a game of Holler right now, and we don't want to cut the fans of this game short, so he'll get in here when he is done running the game. But until then, and this is no loss, we have Tracy Sizemore to
Hello,
answer
everybody.
all of your wonderful questions about Holler. So welcome, Tracy.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
So now that Tim's not here and we can get away with some fun stuff while Tim's not here, what it is has it been like shepherding this property from Tim's nascent ideas into a fully fledged role playing game worthy of a Kickstarter and all of the wonderful things that have happened so far? What has that been like?
Well, it's been really wonderful, actually, because Tim and I think alike. I think we've mentioned that before. There's a very similar sort of outlook on the world from me and Tim, even though we grew up very differently and have different backgrounds. And so when I was first given the manuscript, I was just reading through it, and it took a while. Tim wrote a lot, and it's all so interesting. And I was struggled with it because I was wondering, like, well, given the normal way that Savage Worlds books kind of do things, do we want to shoehorn it into that normal way, or do I want to sort of like embrace what Tim has done and sort of blend? It's like the old with the new kind of thing. And what we finally decided to do, because Tim had just written so much, and I was like, oh, we might be saying too much here. We might be, lingering too long in these particular areas. But what he said was so interesting and so cool and so evocative of what the setting was, that we sort of went with it. And so going through it was a matter of really just sort of a surgical knife rather than a big, wafts of like, throwing things up in the air and leaving them on the floor. We cut a lot, but of what Tim had written, but it was very, very careful cuts, and shepherding it through was a matter of not only taking what Tim's intent was for the setting, but also sort of teaching Tim a little bit about how Savage Worlds works, and how what he writes translates into a game. And so that was sort of eye-opening for him, because I would say, it's not that it's not obvious sometimes, but sometimes you say, well, Tim, if we follow what you're saying here, if we do what you're suggesting, how will a GM know what to do in this particular case? And what will players do in this particular case? And maybe we need to tell them, or maybe we need to, like, this is just what I anticipate thing will happen, and based on that this is a game and not a story. And so it was interesting, sort of shepherding through that process. Whether I'm right or not is a whole other story, but between the two of us, we were able to sort of, mold and shape what Holler was, in addition to sort of moving it more into a we're heroes and we have hope direction, rather than a Cthulhu-esque horror direction. We kept a lot of that horror, but we sort of embraced the Savage Worlds of it, which is basically like, you're going to be able to do stuff. You're way disadvantaged, but we have hope, and you're going to do things, not just live through it. So it was great, because Tim was very responsive and very open to those ideas. And when I suggested changing to certain things, he was completely open to it. Sometimes I'd suggest them for him to change. Sometimes there were rules specific things that I just outright wrote and then checked with him on. And that's how it's been. It's sometimes I just write the stuff. Sometimes I just wait for him to make the changes. It just depends. But yeah, it was, that's how it was. It was pretty great.
Well, and speak of the devil, perfect timing, Mr. Early.
Hey, y'all. I'm sorry. We just finished a dramatic task. You can't just
no, you
leave a
cannot cut
dramatic
that short. No.
task.
No. We'll let you catch your breath, because I got one more question for Tracy from Jody. He says,
Sure.
Jody wants to know, Tracy, how did you land that sweet gig? Now that it's totally worthy of a bard like you.
Wow. Okay, well, geez, I had been asked by Shane to do something else, and which was sort of it was in a nebulous state, so we weren't sure, and Shane was really overwhelmed with Pathfinder at the time, or getting that ready to announce and all that stuff, and so he ended up asking me to do Holler. Partly because the other project was sort of in a nebulous state and we wasn't sure what was happening, but partly because I had a little bit of understanding of what Tim was writing about. But I don't know. I don't know what else prompted him, because I mean, he was like, "Do you want to do some Pathfinder?" I'm like, "Well, Pathfinder's not for me, really." But he's like, "Well, how about Holler?" I'm like, "Holler is for me." And I jumped on it. I just I said absolutely yes, and he breathed a huge sigh of relief right in front of me in the video chat that we were in. And we're like, okay, good, because I'm overwhelmed with stuff right now, and I need you to shepherd I need somebody who's independent, who's not going to need a lot of guidance, to shepherd this through, to get it to a certain point, so that once we get there, I can come in and say, I have confidence that this is mostly ready, and now I just have to do my pass on it and make my comments and do changes and stuff like that, but nothing huge, right? So my background, lighting designer and theater major, and so I've got background in researching Appalachia and that time period, and so it just spoke to me. And besides that, Tim is a great person to work with, and
He
we
is
were
a
friends
cool
already.
dude. Did you get to meet Tim when he was out at the conventions in Colorado?
Yeah, I first met Tim, I believe it was at Tacticon. Is that right,
Mhm.
Tim?
Yep.
And then we hooked up again at GenghisCon.
Mhm.
And it just was fast friends, and we ended up talking. I ended up, because he was so close to my aesthetic, I ended up talking his ear off about my own setting, Han Cluster, which seemed to really jive with him, and we talked Holler, and it was just really fast friends.
And we
Easy
actually
to
started playing together before Tracy became the developer project manager for Holler. Like, I played in a few of your games.
Yeah, I played in
Yeah.
your Rabbit, the
Oh
Warren
yeah,
game.
the Warren. I ran the Warren
Yep.
at Genghis. Yeah.
Right, way to traumatize kids. Violent bunnies. Yes.
Yeah.
So welcome, Tim. Yeah,
Thanks.
Jody gives you a woohoo, and yes, woohoo for Tim. Well, one, thank you for finishing your game,
Cool.
because we know your players appreciate it, and there was such demand for Holler games that it crushes us to be like, sorry, people, you can only sign up for one Holler game, because every time it happened last year too, but we put it up the game, and we'd have the very first person to find the website was live would sign up for all of the games, and we're like, oh, you can do that for the other games, people, but you can't do it for the Holler games because they're in such demand. And so what's it been like, Tim? I mean, over the last year, before we get some of these other great questions from folks, what's it been like co-authoring and having a consummate GM and writer like Tracy come in and into your mix on what you're creating?
Oh, it's just fantastic. Like Tracy and I get along really well. We have similar sort of philosophies and aesthetic preferences when it comes to games and gaming, and how we approach narrative, and how we try to structure sessions, and how we try to encourage like player agency and player storytelling and empower players. And so I just felt like we were on the same page with, just our basic approach to gaming. And, this is my first time doing an RPG, and it's a huge RPG, and it's from start to finish, and it's every part of it. And so I needed someone who had like more experience with Savage Worlds. I played my first Savage Worlds game. I've told y'all this story before. February 2019, Scott Woodard, Flash Gordon. So I've been playing Savage Worlds for a little over 2 years now, and I did a deep dive. But there's intricacies in the system, and how all the little subsystems work, and the hindrances and edges ecosystem that need input from and you need another voice and that has more experience than you and can look at things in a different way and is more familiar with the conventions of the genre and certain gaming conventions. And so it's just been fantastic. I love getting feedback. I've sort of switched from like professor mode and mode when I was writing poetry, where I feel like I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. I don't really need feedback. I have a vision. And now I'm like, I want as much feedback as I can get because I want to be as good at this as I can possibly be. And having mentors like Tracy and friends, they're friends and mentors, right? Tracy and Shane, and it's just been incredible. Tracy's been amazing on this project. And, you know, your energy, Chris, behind the scenes, I just feel like you're a huge fan of the game and proponent of the game. And it's been amazing. And I might be a little like more like enthusiastic right now because I've been in character for 3 hours and we just came off a dramatic task, and like one of my players is from Pike County, Kentucky, and I love playing with other people from Appalachia. It's like my favorite thing, and I know instantly when I get in there I hear the accent and I was, yes, we're going to do this. So it was awesome. So I have that like post-game bump. So if I seem a little intense, that's why I'm perfectly happy and reasonable and saying
no, that's perfect.
But, yeah.
Oh, and Dustin and Rocky Mountain Games chimes with the same thing. It's that, yeah, when you get all things working in alignment, especially when, you know, your bosses encourage it. I think we're all lucky here having Shannon as our boss because I mean, my own little enthusiasm. I mean, I wanted to, you know, to rub off on other folks because, and I think Tracy would say the same thing. I think she just did literally about, you know, you're so obvious when you meet you how authentic and cool of a guy you are. That, you know, knowing that we want to bring this out to other people, it was, you know, it's instantaneous. Like, yeah, this is, you know, Tim's great and on a level that's not usual to find. I mean, you know, this is a quality concept and it's a unique concept. But, you know, just that, like, I think you come into it with such passion and clear eyes about it that it's like, we got to help this guy make this a reality. I mean, it's just, you know, there's so little. There's a word for it. This is the problem with having to like do a panel with people who are professionals writing. It's like, you know, I'm usually decently eloquent, but you know, with you guys and gals, my point being is like Holler is really, it's a special setting, right? Because it's, I think in a way that pop culture has treated Appalachia in a very specific way for so long. And this is different than that. This is, I think it's not going for overly sentimental, but it is going for authenticity with freedom to explore, right? Mm-hmm. And I think those two things are unique. You know, it's not punching down. It's not caricature. There's so much like keeping the horror, keeping the seriousness of the conflict. You know, it's not rosy either. It's not trying to, whitewash over and make things pleasant, but it is still accessible on a level that it's fun and interesting and approachable, even for, I guess I'm technically a Yankee, whatever we are, Westerners who weren't really involved in the history of the country until, 100 years in. But that's what I kind of think is that I there's so much of this that it's unique, and it's sad that it's unique because it's like you're doing some research with you over the last year and just finding out how much like American folklore is really from this region and how what an interesting region it is. The fact that it's kind of the first wilderness of America in one sense. When we were a young country from at least the European perspective, and then now looking back, 100 more, almost 200 and whatever years, how much of our own sense of storytelling and myth making and culture identity goes at least through here, if not originated in Appalachia, is really kind of fascinating. So that now that we get to play with those narratives and themes, I'm personally excited. So I'll throw it to you guys. What are you most excited for people to start seeing about Holler? Like, is there a mechanic? Is there a narrative? Is there a character, a monster, a theme? What do you hope for folks to? What's you're excited for people to see?
I really like our set of archetypes and sort of their mix of like they have like a very recognizable sort of archetypal and mythical resonance. Everybody, you say moonshiner, you have this instant set of associations. You say bluegrass picker, you have this instant set. You have, say, holy roller, you have that. So we are sort of embodying archetypes from the culture, sometimes stereotypes from the culture, but I think we're investing them with like a three-dimensionality that's really interesting. And I think they're just fun to play. And so people just stepping in and saying, well, what's it like to be a moonshiner? Or how do I embody like a bluegrass picker? And our bluegrass picker is sort of rakish, is sort of like always looking for a good time, trying to shirk responsibility, sort of a picaresque character. And then we have something like the gouger that we just sort of like pulled forward.
That was a fantastic pun, by the way, sir, or double entendre between picaresque spelling and picker.
I
just had to chime in. I heard that. I caught it. That was fantastic. Not to cut you off, but the right. I mean, I think that's the truth of it. Seeing what you've done with this work, it is approachable and recognizable, but it's gamified in a really kind of elegant way. So.
Yeah, so I think I'm with Tim in what part of the brilliance of what Tim did in the setup of this. And the setup, I mean, you can't overlook how carefully thought out this game is in terms of the idea of it, the setup, the otherness, the sealing off and all that stuff, but also who are the players and what do they do? And this is the core question of any setting. And what Tim has done is created PCs that have a unique form of freedom about them. They are not beholden to the big boys. They are already outside the system. They're poor. They're disadvantaged in big ways. But the one thing they've got going for them is that they are free. And they insist on being free, and they want to help others become free. And so playing somebody like that in the context of a bluegrass picker or a moonshiner or a gouger, these people are doing what they want to do. They are who they want to be. And in that context, you get to adventure with them and play with them while trying to help others do the same. And I think that's particularly a brilliant part of the setting that would be often overlooked by people who are just sitting down to play it. Like, this is why it's fun, So I'm excited about people being able to really experience that and see what that is. In addition to little, like, if I were to pluck out a couple of mechanical things that I'm super excited for people to see, the way we handle blight, I think, is very cool and interesting, and it's very setting. It's very apropos of the setting, and some of the stuff we do with the gouger is pretty fun and interesting too. And so we'll see. I mean, I'm excited to see some of those things come out and see how people like them.
Well, and so that'll lead me. I love Jody's comment about the fact that the people from the region are so willing to put their characters in the front porch for everyone's enjoyment. What was the hashtag we decided, Jody? Holler proud. I think that applies there. But Tracy, you just mentioned something that's actually very interesting, and I think I've gotten to see a little bit of this in the book, and it kind of came up in one of the Reddit threads about how much crunch we've added or how you guys have added. Let's see if I can pop this up. I think it might cover up Tracy and I for a little bit, but there's our new gouger map and
Speakeasy.
The Speakeasy, just for a little sneak peek. But not only is there a really cool map, and there's 3 other maps that are currently, well, 4 technically, because there's 3 other tactical maps 5. There's the Asheville town map, and then there's the world map. There's lots of maps of Holler. I'm liking this. People are going to get their maps worth. But on that map, which we've just showed a preview of, there's some mechanics that go behind gouging.
Yes.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about that new modular toolbox mechanic for gouging?
Sure. So some of this is still in development and, you know, awaiting approval and stuff, but the basics of it is that gouging happens in 3 rounds, right? There's the before the fight, where, I mean, gouging is a one-on-one fight, and it's observed, it's watched, right? There's an audience for it. Those are very important parts of it, right? And then you're trying to go ahead.
Yeah, no, just no weapons. It's like fist on fist,
fist on fist,
fair. There's a sense of honor and pride and tradition in the exchange. Sorry, Tracy, I didn't mean to.
No, and you know, some people make their living at this, right? And so part of it is the first round of a gouging fight is the calling out, where you're calling out your opponent. And Tim, how do you explain like how we sort of came at that? Why we came at that way?
Well, a couple of inspirations there. One pulled from like just pro wrestling, you know, and how schoolyard fights kind of go. One sort of pulled from like Irish traveler tradition and culture, where there's like you talk yourself up, you challenge your opponent, and it doesn't just have to be like this sort of like I'm tougher than you. It can get kind of like outlandish and just sort of extreme levels of exaggeration and absurdism, and it can get really sort of creative linguistically. It's like when I'm teaching Beowulf, like the students always focus on like his physical prowess, his martial prowess, but he was also very skilled rhetorically, right? So it's sort of taking those ideas, you bring your legend to the table with you when you arrive and you extol it, right? In whatever idiosyncratic fashion you want, right?
Which makes it interesting because then you're building a gouger, right? That wants to get involved in gouging fights. And that gouger not only would want to have fighting, but would want to have taunt, or would want to have persuasion, would want to have these social skills that also contribute to that mythos that is the gouger, right? So there's mechanical things that happen during the calling out, and if you win the calling out, you get an advantage later when you actually fight. And then the second round is the sizing up, where you're trying to find weaknesses in your opponent, and or letting the audience help you find weaknesses in your opponent, or whatever, or size them up, you know, just figure out how to come at them best, right? And that's a whole nother sort of mechanical thing, that if you win, you get, you know, advantages later during the actual fight. And then the actual gouging happens, which is a one-on-one, nobody gets to help you affair. And it's dangerous. Like when you get into that, when you're there, you have decided that you are risking quite a bit to be there. Right. And depending on how you did in previous rounds, you may get an advantage in that gouging. And then depending on the results, there is a gouging results table that you roll on to see what happened. And a lot of those results are pretty brutal. Brutal.
So exactly. And I love the mix of like the first 2 rounds, you can get support from your fellows, right? And they have a lot of comedic potential, both the calling out and the sizing up. Like when you're examining for weaknesses, like, you know, that can go a lot of different directions, but then it takes a turn and it gets really intense, and there can be, you know, some pretty brutal outcomes. And there's a lot of contrast like that in Holler, between where we're playing with folk humor and folk wisdom and sort of these lighthearted takes, and then it'll turn on a dime and get more poignant even. And it's not always just violence. Sometimes, you know, it's emotional, it's philosophical, it's existential, it's whatever. And so it can switch. I think it switches gears to those different things pretty well and in pretty interesting ways.
Yeah, and we wanted to keep that contrast, that we're reminding you this is a serious world with serious people who are hurting each other. But at the same time, some people are taking advantage of that and becoming folk heroes because of that, you know. And then on the other opposite end of the spectrum that Tim was alluding to, we, like in my game Hollow Oak, we have a thing, I actually take advantage of one of Tim's like sort of narrative things that people do in the Holler, which is the Hollerin'. And the way I did it was we were in a town, and everybody contributes. Everybody who wants to participate can either roll performance or athletics. Athletics if they want to make the loudest holler, performance if they want to make the most unique holler. And everybody's participating, everybody who wants to. And then whoever, I mean, this is how I do it in my one shot. We don't have it mechanicized in the game like this. We just have it open-ended so that you can sort of decide for yourself how you want to do it. But in my one shot, whoever wins that roll wins the Hollerin'. And you know you won because in Hollow Oak anyway, everybody starts to mimic the holler that wins. And so we all sort of come together and mimic the same noise that you've made. And so it becomes this cacophony of this chorus of the hollers that are all the same. And it's a what we can do together moment. It's a this is our connection moment. This is sort of a unique way that Holler residents connect with each other. And
I can't wait for that scene in Benicio del Toro's Holler movie. Come on, Benicio, call us. Yeah, right. But
and you can play it for like that communal uplifting thing. You can make it really super haunting. You know, it's really kind of a spooky notion, like all those voices adopting another voice and rising, you know, in sort of this ritual chant. And this is a thing that's some sort of like emotional purgation so that the community can continue to survive, right? So a lot of different ways a GM could play with that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Jody would be remiss if I didn't plug. So between the last stream and this stream, I haven't even been able to check today. I've been so busy. So we were like 1,000 away this morning. Last stream we were 800 and some away, and within the last 10 minutes now we're 750 away. So for folks, you know, hopefully everyone watching now knows, and you're already all backers. But there is a Kickstarter going on right now for Holler and Appalachian Apocalypse. We are so close to the big stretch goal at 70K. Everybody who's in on the Boss of the Holler level, which is the box set with everything in it, all of the maps, the archetype cards, the pawns, a copy of the book, all the goodies are in this box set. You get a free, everyone who's in already will get a free limited edition leatherette cover version of Holler, in addition to the regular gorgeous art our Italian artists conceived of cover book. So you'll actually get 2 copies of Holler at the Boss of the Holler level, and one of them will be a signed, because Tim is going to make his way to our warehouse to personally sign all of these lovely leatherettes, and we're so close. We all want this because, I mean, come on now, like we all know Holler's special, and we are only 750 away. That is so close, so close. So guys, if you already backed, you can still help us out. Share the link. So we put out a lot of social media content for Holler this last week or two. Find one you like and share it. We put up 3 previews of the Logger, the Seer, and the Peddler. And actually, we'll have you guys talk about those 3 because those are fun to play. And those are a social media stretch goal that is also very close to being online. I think we might have even unlocked it. It was like 650 in the first day, and I haven't finished tallying it up, but the response on that's been amazing. And those join 9 other archetypes for a total of 12. And I think there are possibly some more in the book that we're not going to make into archetype cards, but there are different variants that you could play, like the Noah Count and the Lit Head, and some other really, really great authentic character types. But guys, so let's talk about those 3. So pick one of the 3 you want to talk about between the Logger, the Seer, and the Peddler, and tell us what is that character? What's their concept?
So with the Logger, they're sort of in a similar category to the Miner and the Lint Head. These are folks who are employed in one of the sort of the three main industries that the big boys run in the Holler. So as that, it means you have worked for the big boys at some point. You understand what it's like to be subjected to those conditions every day. Loggers and miners in particular are going into extreme conditions to do their jobs. Miners underneath the earth, loggers into these demon-infested woods, and like the logger looks sort of like a Valkyrie almost, and that's an archetype that has the potential for like, well, I cut down half this forest, now I feel kind of bad about it. So it can have a little like anti-hero vibe or hero after some sort of redemption for what they've done. The peddler, there's a little, I want Tracy to talk about the seer in detail, so I'm going to do the logger and the peddler. There's like, it's kind of a sealed economy in the Holler to a degree, controlled by the big boys who issue company script. But then it's not, because they bring in Kramer Holt agents from the city. They bring in school teachers. They bring in ministers to sort of promote the company dogma. And those folks can bring in stuff with them, and it leaks into the economy. And there might be some folks, Kramer Holt agents, who are corrupt, who smuggle things in, right? They want really good moonshine. They go back, sell it in the city. And so a peddler sort of takes advantage of the black market that's developed in the Holler from stolen big boy goods and from smuggled big boy goods, right? And they have sort of the air of the snake oil salesman about them. Like, you're never going to get a good deal on a peddler. You can try and try and try. So they're going to be smooth talking and really cunning and savvy.
Yeah. So, and then the seer, we actually had for a little while there, we had Veronica Blessing playtesting our new seer sort of test rules, right? Still in development, still trying to figure it out, but we did not want to have the seer have an arcane background. Like right now we have folk magic, we have blessed for the holy roller, folk magic for the granny woman and the like, and then we have the moonshiner. Those are all arcane backgrounds. They all sort of deal in powers, in swayed powers. The seer, we didn't want to deal in swayed powers. We wanted to have its own sort of thing. And so we have a couple of different edges the seer can take as they sort of rank up. And they're pretty interesting. And the way it ran when we tested it was very sort of a very good fit for what the Holler is, that tale telling, that you don't know how long it's been since from here to here and what happened then, and tales become stories or happenings become stories, and the seer has an influence over what becomes a tale, like in before it happens. And so or reframing what happened, that in order to make it a tale. And so that's what we're going for. We're still working on it, but the testing we've done so far has been really cool, because not only does it give the player who plays them sort of agency to kind of come up with crazy ideas that the GM can either take on or not take on, but also it gives the GM a way to influence the game in a way that the players are intentionally influencing it. And just another lever, like the players are going to do that anyway, but another extra lever of tale telling and mystery that sort of just is dripping off of this setting. So we're working on it, and it's so far it's been pretty great.
Yeah, in some ways it's a thematic expansion of the powers of the narrative Benny, just like with some dressing and some different twists and turns and things that can come out of it. And like Tracy said, this is a storytelling culture. It's an oral culture. We don't have a research skill.
No research skill.
We don't have a science skill, and how these things have been cut off from these folks. So all knowledge is sort of spread by conversation, and all knowledge is kind of provisional and always subject to revision. And just because this is the truth in the Cussfoot Fens, very different version of the truth in the Ghost Ridge Mountains about a cryptid, or about how to heal somebody, or about, like, what you do when old Scratch comes calling.
Well, and I think you kind of just answered this question from Rocky Mountain Games. Are all the archetypes from your poetry, or did some come from game development? I mean, I think with the Seer, there's a lot of game development elements in that and how that works. The idea that narrative Benny you mentioned being very much a game mechanic. But any of the other archetypes, I mean, we've got a whole slew of them. This is actually probably worth mentioning because they're all super unique. I won't take it for granted that folks will know these. Let me actually pull these up. There's a whole, oh my God, there's such a list of archetypes. But let's see, we've got the Bluegrass Picker, which you mentioned a little bit as being very rakish. I think this has got to be your favorite, Tim, the Curious Youth.
Yeah, I enjoy the Curious Youth. This is my combination of the hero from the Jack Tales and, kids I've known growing up. And yeah, I love the Curious Youth. We
mentioned about the Gouger, and we have some custom rules for the gouging. And again, folks, all up for change. The game's still in development. It has not met the Clint Black edit yet, which we joked in the previous stream is the all good things come to an end at the Clint Black edit.
He's gonna have fun with this one.
Right? I remember printing out SWAT, and we did a bunch of mechanical stuff in SWAT, and brought a copy to Clint at Gen Con, and he's like, "Oh, cool! And he's like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to change that." It's like, there we go. Free advice from Clint, but the man's brain never stops on this. But another one that's a really interesting one. I know we haven't really talked about yet. The Holy Roller. Does one of you want to take on what is the Holy Roller and how does that work as a character archetype?
Well, I felt like just religious faith and practice is so important in the region, and I'm not doing a simulationist evocation of the region, but I don't think you can have anything that's Appalachian adjacent without that. And we've taken a very ecumenical approach to dealing with religion. We just say it's the good book and there's a higher power and you get filled with the Spirit, and that can sort of come from anywhere and take any shape that you want it to, like in the character's head. But the Holy Roller is someone who is filled with the Spirit and receives like divine power from that Spirit and practices charismatic religion that is opposed to the big boys' notion of religion, which for the big boys, religion is a tool of oppression. For the Holy Roller, religion is a tool of self-expression and empowerment, right? And so we take stuff that's, comes from the region, like that people are very familiar with, like the snake handling, foot washing, faith healing, those kinds of things, and wrap them into that archetype. Tracy played a Holy Roller incredibly well when the plot point campaign I ran.
Yeah, and then during the actual play, Ron.
Oh.
And it's up on YouTube, Pinnacle Entertainment's YouTube, and Twitch video on demand still, twitch.tv/Peg Inc. So go check out the Tracy's actual play, which both parts we've run this last 2 weeks. And that was a lot of fun, really good demonstration of what you kind of do with this fantastic game. Two other ones that are actually interesting. What's a tinker, guys? A tinker is not a term I'm familiar with. What's a tinker?
Well, for us, a tinker is sort of a gearhead, right? Shade tree mechanic, somebody who's just really good working with machines. Maybe they picked this up, stealing cars from requisition yards, working on them. Maybe they picked it up in the textile mill, working on Samuel Ashdown's crazy machinery. But it's just someone with like an incredible degree of mechanical skill. I knew tons of folks like this growing up who could take things apart and put them together with this, like on first sight. And it makes no sense how a human's able to do this. My grandfather, was very handy in this way. So I wanted that to be represented. And then it also goes in with the illegal drag racing culture and dirt track racing and the moonshine running, the blockaders.
Tell us about the moonshiners too.
Well, I mean, that was like what archetypes am I going to have? I think Miner was first on the list and Moonshiner was probably second, right? You know, it's a part of the region's history that I think most people that are from the region are kind of proud of, to be honest. Like, moonshiners represent like this independence, this like just ability to work your own land and make profit from it and figure out how to do that. And, you know, if you run afoul of the law, you know, Jimmy Johnson, like not Junior Johnson, sorry, from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, famous NASCAR racer. Like, a lot of the early NASCAR racers got their start like running moonshine. So it's just something that's embedded in the region. Most folks who are from there know where they can get it, you know, and it was just something that was around growing up, and it's representative of a particular kind of individualism, freedom, and just refusal to conform. A lot of these moonshiners would get arrested like 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 times and just keep doing it, because that's what they knew.
The other thing about the moonshiner is their arcane skill is distilling, and their powers are either, you know, they're either drunk or they're thrown.
Right. So little sip for a boost or a boon, you want to cause some damage. It can be combustible too. You can mix up some combustible shine. So it's like magic, you know.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. So I mean, I think this is the first time we've mentioned. I mean, moonshiners have an arcane background.
Right.
I mean, that is fantastic. And so yeah, no, that is pretty exciting. It's just great narratively. I mean, that's one of the things I love. So I mean, I think which ones have we mentioned? Like Mountaineer and Mountaineer and the Miners. So we have really great art for them. I think the Miner art was one of the first pieces that kind of came through that really kind of set the tone of the new art. So I mean, those sound a little more conventional. I mean, I kind of understand what mining is and mountaineering is, but how do those two work as player characters within the Holler?
Miners, like the way they tend to get played, they're sort of like physical powerhouses, but also like the steady rock of the group and often the moral center of the group. It just happens that every time somebody plays a miner, they turn out to be like, you know, really loyal.
Oh, they're down to earth, you say?
Yeah, a little down to earth and just like rock solid. But no, they're just like they're who you want
sentinels,
on your
right?
team. If you're going to be in a foxhole, something you want it to be a miner in this game, and that's just how people tend to play that archetype. You know, the hindrances and edges that lead them there a little bit, but you get to pick your. I love the miner. It's just like a paragon of strength and virtue. You know, really cool character.
And what's the other one that we were talking about?
Mountaineer.
Ah, the Mountaineer. Well, Tim's better equipped. So, Mountaineer, like the way they're in touch with the land, kind of thing, you know, and the art we have for them suggests that they might also be a bit of a Beastmaster, and Beastmaster is also available in the setting. Holy Roller has our archetype for the Holy Roller has a snake called Erastus, a copperhead snake that she's a snake handler, you know, and in Appalachia that's not unheard of. And so expanding on that, the Mountaineer is a nature lover kind of thing, and a survivalist, you know, a stealth sort of person, and maybe uses a bow. It depends on, you know, how you roll with him or her. But and then our art suggests that he might also be a Beastmaster. And so these are the kinds of things that you can play, and that's the general sort of feel of it.
Yeah, the art's very evocative. I think Tyler Childers chimed in. I think I threw the Mountaineers, the art for the actual play. I threw character art behind everybody, and I think I threw the Mountaineer up for me. And Tyler's question was, what did you name the squirrel? Or was there a little squirrel popping out of his beard? I think I chose Chumley. Was the name for the squirrel?
It's a fine name for a squirrel.
Spelled CHOMONDOLEY, because that's like one of those Worcestershire words. right? Really, Worcester. Oh, really? There's more
Worcester.
vowels. There's more vowels in it than that, guys. Come on now. But the I love the British. They're hilarious. But the I mean, we are. I think Jody just chimed in that we are more than 3/4 of the way to unlocking the last 3. I think because we're so close, guys. I think we're gonna throw up a video probably tomorrow or the next day. As one of our last social media stretch pushes. So we'll let everybody know to go and like and comment and share that video link. We got to redo the music on it, but it's got basically it's which side are you on? And we pan down all of the archetypes on one shot, and then a second shot goes through all of the fae and the monsters and the big boys and kind of asks which side are you on. In fact, I think I'm going to show it to you guys now, but I have to turn the volume down so we don't get. I thought I picked an old enough version of the song, but then again, some people do fake things. But yeah, let me see if I can't pull it in now, and I think I can turn the volume down on it. But the that'll be our last. We're so close to unlocking the Leatherette cover, and we've got. I think within 2 days of doing the social media stretch goal, we're over 725 or more shares, and our goal is 1,000. So, I mean, one more little thing for you guys to push, and that'll definitely happen. But let me see if I can find it. Here we go. So, yeah, let's see if I can find it. There we go. So, this is our video, guys. So we're gonna post this up in the next day or two. And so these are all the gorgeous architects. I love the seer. I mean, that is such a great picture, which that gets in perspective. There's a really pretty Leatherette cover. The Trapper, the oh my god,
I went little Sally Toadstool that I have as a bath mat now.
Oh yeah, there's the witch, Fae Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you can watch it 4 or 5 times. Just count. Sheep Squatch
showed up.
Oh my god, I love it. The so that's another one of the right. So one of the last things that we've got an exclusive. I think End World is going to post it. The Sheep Squatch preview. Tim, tell us about Sheep Squatch. I mean, I don't know anybody in the world who can find out that we have a game with Sheep Squatch in it and not drop. Come on, whatever it is, 100 and something for the all-in boss level. I want the box set because
we also have the Moth in the game that we call the Mothman. The Moth is in the Sheep Squatch. Is just another. How can I say that? Is another cryptid from West Virginia, and there are like 6 different species of big feet, I guess one would say, that have been identified in West Virginia. I have this beautiful little pamphlet that details them all, like the difference between a skunk ape and a yahoo. And so, it's a serious setting in some ways. But I also wanted there to be a sense of whimsy and fun. And the cryptids, I think, sort of bring that. They can be used for comic relief, I think, in some cases. Some of them are more fierce than others. And they're just, they sort of question some interesting boundaries between human, monster, demon, haint, fae, and then cryptid. It's a very interesting taxonomy in the Holler with these different groups of creatures.
I would
Why
expect
does crazy things.
I mean, say hi to Tansy in the background. Tansy is the doing the squeak because she's very excited. Her dad is now.
Can y'all hear? Yeah. She's playing. She's been real patient. Like I've been on camera for like 5 hours today, so she's about to reach her max of.
Oh, we don't mind one bit. Tansy is adorable. I love the vicarious puppy pics. But the Fearground says the cryptids are awesome. Give us more of them. Right. Well, that's just the art we've got. There's more cryptids in the book. Mm-hmm. That's just the art. Oh, yeah. The art I could jam in on the wonderful. So that big background piece, and it's also the background we're using. Let me see if I can pop it up over us for a quick second. Do I have a version of it? I do. Okay. Well, at least it says, there we go. Coming to Kickstarter. It's already on Kickstarter, people. But that's the middle of it. But it's even a longer piece of art. It's got stuff on both sides. Kind of got a creepy, wintry kind of forest scene on one side, and then the cabin on the other side. That's the GM screen art, and oh my god, I love it. it's just one, it's a handy piece of art, but I mean that's why don't you guys talk about that? Like, I mean, I think we mentioned it early in like the last interview I did with you guys, but over the last year and some, the visual look of Holler's changed. And while I super loved the gothic horror cover Carl did with that's just a black and red, the art look and kind of the style of play has changed a little bit. Why don't you guys talk about how that's evolved?
Mm-hmm. Well, we started out with the more like representational style, more realistic style, and just with our archetypes, it wasn't sort of empowering them and making them as cool and as iconic as we wanted them to be. We wanted them to feel like really special and dynamic and colorful, because they are really colorful. And so Shane had the brilliant idea, let's do more of a comic book style. And it perfectly fit like sort of the tone of what we were trying to accomplish, I think. And Tracy can speak more to that too, because she's seen the evolution as
Yeah.
well.
So what my perspective of the art change, like Tim was hinting at, and like I said, several minutes ago, is really it comes down to what PCs do in the setting. What do they do? And when you're in answering that question, it comes. The art is a big part of that. And so part of our switch to the art that we have now was a more, like Tim said, a more empowering way of viewing these characters, a more action-oriented, we're going to do things here. We're not going to just be put upon here. And it's not that the old art was doing that. It's just that the new art sort of thrusts it forward a little bit more. And it gives you that sense of movement, that sense of forward action. And I think that's what makes it so special. Besides the fact, like Tim said, more colorful, because they are colorful characters, and more intriguing in a way. Like it takes us away from that dread reality of the company's system, but still has hints of it, but also gives you that idea of hope and mysticism and magic that the Fae bring, that the cryptids bring. Like all of that is part of the new art style, and that's why we love it so much.
Francesco Chiappara, an amazing job on the art, and I agree. I think that's what sets Holler apart from like a more Cthulhu-esque horror setting, right? It's the default assumption is not that you're going to be able to make it all go away and make you can't kill someone and kill the dragon at the top of the mountain and then the party lives and the village lives happily ever after. So there's no one you can just kill and make the Holler a magical, wonderful place to live in. But also you're not just having stuff done to you. Like the guaranteed outcome of your adventure is not death, dismemberment, or insanity, like it is in kind of some of the other more popular horror tropes, at least in RPGs, where it's not if but when. I think here the fact that it is still gamified in such a way that is like you said, empowering is the right word, and fun, and that level. I think and that's the other thing too, is I think if you go with the photorealistic art style and then use only like historical photos and stuff for the real style, it almost limits you in the sense of trying to just recreate history. And here, the game has that access to freedom. It has that level of fantasy that is alt history, alternative history. Are there better terms than just alt? But it is that freedom to tell new stories here, even though there's so many of those themes that are still there. You're not bound by having to be a scholar like Tim is of the history, but two, like anyone can run this. There's enough information in the book, but it's also we give game masters and players the freedom to embody any of these characters and then take on any of these challenges in a way that's still respectful of the history, but does not have to be a pantomime of it. And that's I think that's what makes it a game, right? That's what makes it Savage Worlds and not just, let's only, it makes it a campaignable too, versus kind of a one shot. Like, there's more that you could do than just experience it once. You can game in this and you can kind of fill it out. So I like how the art has evolved with, the two of you evolving the game on this. And I think John Doom has appropriate comment. I know a lot of people talk about the journey being better than the win, which is only true if you can win, right? I mean, that is part of it. There has to be tangible goals here. And there's other horror games, yeah, right? Winning is on the table. So I think that's kind of one of the neat things here is that Tim and Tracy have given players those victories that, and again, we're not blowing up the Holler and undoing everything in there, but there is that sense of, I mean, I think the actual play showed this too. Like, that town was unsavable, right? There was no way to keep the blight away, but also not have the reason the blight was being held at bay, which was, wrong in itself. You can't have it. You had to make the tough choice, right? Make the tough choices. But I like that technique, Tracy, that you had at the end. And I think this is something I think I want to do in all my kind of campaign games and even one shots too, is that narrative. Tell us what happens about your characters over the next several months. I love that. That was such a great way to tie up what happened in the games and then give players some interesting closure on that. I think that's a fantastic little mechanic right there.
Yeah, we're trying our best to keep the horror elements present, because I don't want to bag on horror. Horror is great. I love horror, actually.
I'm a huge
but there's humanity in horror. There's hope. If there's not hope, it becomes a different kind of game. And we wanted hope. Like, it's not a bad game, it's just a different game. And this one is dripping with hope.
And something that happened like sort of early on in the development, this is before I'd written the plot point or the Savage Tales. I had a lot of the other stuff. And Shane asked me to write a story, a Holler story, a fiction piece for a future Wendigo Tales, still not out. And the main character was a gouger named Minnie Mae Fugate. And she was in this fight and she took down the big baddie. And like in a gouging fight, sort of the best thing you can do is like take the other person's eye. It's, it's brutal, but like, it's this David versus Goliath story. And she took the eye and Shane was like, maybe our heroine shouldn't take the eye. Maybe it's more interesting if she doesn't take the eye. And that just, it's way
Does she at least give him a scar to remember her by?
She does a number on him and she actually loses her eye, which becomes a whole different thing. Yeah, so I just, I took Shane's
spoiler
and 180'd it. Oh yeah, that fiction. About that, like plot. Yeah, no, it's still that ruins nothing. It ruins nothing.
I love it. See, this is why I want you guys. I mean, to me, I'm so happy about the evolution of this. I'm so happy you've hooked up with Tracy to do development, and then we got you from, hey, I like Savage Worlds, and I'm gonna write a game. Do you think it's the right system to, man? Like, congratulations, Tim. It is on Kickstarter. It is being made. We are preciously close to the limited edition cover, which, I mean, not everybody gets. And let me go see how close we are, because it's been a long day and I have not checked in. We were like 67 something. Oh, we are 69,261. Oh my God, so close. And
so I've got to step away because I actually have to run my game now.
Yes.
So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we'll call it there. So this is the 1 hour between Tim's game and Tracy's game. Thank you guys for joining us. The Kickstarter is doing fantastic. But guys, share with your friends. Find one of our media posts, give it a share, because we want to share it with you. We want to play it. Congratulations, Tim and Tracy. It is going fantastically. But with that, I'll let you guys go. And we are so preciously close to the next stretch goal on the cover, and then really, really close on the social media share. So we'll be in touch soon with how you guys can help us get us over those final little plateaus. John Doom gives us all the best, and so all the best to you guys. So thanks, cheers for exactly an hour. It's been fun, folks.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.